In 1932, Australia went to war, not against another nation, but against a flock of birds. And guess who won? Briefly introduced the Great Emu War, a strange yet true event in which the Australian government declared war on emus, large flightless birds, after they caused chaos for farmers. This isn't just a quirky headline, it's a real event with military involvement, machine guns, and some very determined birds. The emus, resilient and fast, proved to be formidable opponents, outsmarting the soldiers at every turn. Farmers were left exasperated as the emus continued to ravage their crops, leading to a desperate call for military intervention. Despite the soldiers' best efforts, the emus' sheer numbers and agility made them nearly impossible to defeat, turning the war into a bizarre and somewhat comical chapter in Australian history. The context of the war, economic struggles after WW1. In the early 1930s, Australia was still recovering from the Great Depression. The economic downturn had left many Australians struggling to find work and make ends meet. The country was grappling with high unemployment rates, widespread poverty, and a general sense of despair. The scars of World War I were still fresh, and the nation was trying to rebuild itself amidst these challenging circumstances. The aftermath of World War I had left a significant impact on Australian society. Many soldiers who had returned from the war found it difficult to reintegrate into civilian life. They were hailed as heroes, but the reality of their situation was far from heroic. The government had promised them land and opportunities, but the economic conditions made it hard to fulfill these promises. Emu problem in Western Australia. Soldiers turned farmers in Western Australia faced an unexpected threat, emus migrating after their breeding season. These men, who had once fought on the battlefields of Europe, were now fighting a different kind of war on their own soil. They had been given land to farm, but the land was harsh and unforgiving. To make matters worse, they were soon confronted with an invasion of emus. These 20,000-plus emus began destroying wheat crops, causing a crisis for farmers struggling to make a living. The emus trampled over the fields, eating the crops and leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. The farmers, already dealing with the economic hardships of the Great Depression, found themselves in a dire situation. Call for help. With crops and livelihoods at risk, the farmers turned to the government for military assistance to deal with the emu invasion. They pleaded for help, explaining that the emus were more than just a nuisance. They were a threat to their survival. The government, recognizing the severity of the situation, decided to take action. Military personnel were deployed to assist the farmers in what would become known as the Great Emu War. The start of the Great Emu War. In the early 1930s, Australia faced an unusual adversary, the emu. These large, flightless birds, native to the continent, became a significant problem for farmers in Western Australia. The emus, in search of food and water, began to invade farmlands, causing extensive damage to crops and creating chaos for the agricultural community. Military involvement. In response to the growing crisis, the Australian government decided to take drastic measures. In November 1932, they deployed soldiers, including Major GPW Meredith, armed with Lewis guns, World War I-era machine guns, to tackle the emu problem. The decision to use military force against birds was unprecedented and highlighted the desperation of the situation. First encounter with the emus. The initial encounters between the soldiers and the emus were nothing short of absurd. Despite their advanced firepower, the soldiers quickly realized that the emus were not easy targets. The birds were incredibly agile and could run at speeds of up to 50 kilometers per hour, making them difficult to hit. The emus would scatter and move unpredictably, often in large groups, making coordinated attacks nearly impossible. The soldiers found themselves chasing after the birds, who seemed to have an uncanny ability to evade capture and gunfire. Humor in failure. The situation quickly turned into a farce. The soldiers' frustration was palpable, yet there was a bizarre, almost humorous element to their struggle. They were trained to fight human enemies, not birds, and the emus seemed to mock their efforts at every turn. The sight of well-armed soldiers being outsmarted by a flock of birds was both comical and tragic. The Great Emu War, as it came to be known, was a unique and somewhat embarrassing chapter in Australian history, highlighting the unpredictability of nature and the limits of human intervention. Over several days, the soldiers managed to kill only a few hundred emus out of thousands, despite firing thousands of rounds. Equipped with Lewis guns, they were confident their firepower would handle the emu problem. However, the emus proved far more resilient and elusive than anticipated. The emus outsmarted the military at every turn, moving unpredictably and scattering when under fire, making it difficult for the soldiers to hit their targets. Their speed and agility were unmatched. Major Meredith humorously noted that the emus were surprisingly tactical, operating in small, coordinated groups, almost as if they had a strategic plan to evade capture. This behavior made it nearly impossible for the military to mount an effective offensive. The emus' natural instincts and survival skills were on full display. The comparison to Zulu warriors highlighted the emus' remarkable ability to evade danger and outmaneuver their opponents. The soldiers were left frustrated and demoralized. The media and public mocked the government for the farcical situation. Headlines ridiculed the military's inability to deal with the emu invasion. The Great Emu War became a legendary tale of nature's unexpected victory over human intervention. In December 1932, after about a month of battling the emus, the military efforts were deemed a failure, and the operation was called off. The emus had effectively won the war. The government decided to handle the emu problem through more conventional means, offering bounties to hunters rather than deploying soldiers. Despite the failure, the Great Emu War became a quirky piece of Australian history, often cited for its absurdity, and the lesson that sometimes nature is tougher than it seems. The emus, resilient and numerous, had outlasted the military's efforts. This event highlighted the challenges of controlling wildlife with military force. The bounty system proved to be more effective in managing the emu population. Over time, the emu population was brought under control. The Great Emu War remains a fascinating chapter in Australia's history, a reminder of the unpredictable nature of wildlife and human endeavours. The Great Emu War stands as a reminder of humanity's ongoing struggle to control nature. Even with modern technology, nature can sometimes win out. The emus, with their sheer numbers and resilience, showed that human efforts to dominate the natural world can be futile. The story has endured in pop culture due to its comedic elements, with jokes, memes, and even film references keeping the event alive in public consciousness. The absurdity of the situation has made it a favorite topic for humor and satire. There are broader environmental and historical lessons to be learned from human interventions like this, and how we continue to face similar dilemmas today. The Great Emu War serves as a cautionary tale about the unintended consequences of human actions on the environment. It reminds us of the importance of respecting and understanding the natural world, and the need for sustainable solutions in our interactions with wildlife. The absurdity and humor of the Great Emu War, coupled with the surprising lessons it holds about underestimating nature, make it a fascinating piece of history. It encourages us to reflect on how bizarre history can be and how this war has taken on a life of its own in popular culture. We invite you to share your favorite strange historical events in the comments and subscribe for more hidden and unusual stories on the Forgotten Chronicles. The Great Emu War stands as a testament to the unpredictable and often humorous nature of history. It reminds us that even the most serious attempts can sometimes lead to unexpected outcomes. This peculiar event has sparked curiosity and laughter for generations. As we delve into history, we find that truth is often stranger than fiction. So don't forget to leave a comment with your favorite strange historical event and subscribe to the Forgotten Chronicles for more intriguing stories.